Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I will be reading to you from The Tower Treasure. It's from 1927, the first in a series of Hardy Boys novels written under the pseudonym Franklin W. Dixon. The two teenage boys, Frank and Joe, work together as a detective team, amateurs still, but occasionally assisting their father, Fenton Hardy, a private investigator. I do readings twice a week. If you subscribe to my Substack newsletter, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoy this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Last episode, the boys followed the thieves' dying words and searched the old tower for the treasure. And the new tower too, but no treasure. Did he lie? Chapter 19. The mystery deepens. Fenton Hardy was dumbfounded when his sons returned to him with the news that the loot had been found in neither the old tower nor the new. So implicitly had he believed in the dying confession of Red Jackley that he had not even bothered to join in the search, preferring to let his sons have the satisfaction of recovering the stolen goods he was positive were hidden in the old tower. "And you're sure you searched the place thoroughly?" he asked for the third time. "Every inch of it," answered Frank. "There was nothing in the old tower. No one had been there in weeks." "How could you tell?" "By the dust. It hadn't been disturbed. There wasn't a footprint of any kind." "But you searched anyway?" "We went through the tower from top to bottom," Frank replied. "It wasn't any use. No one had been there. So then we thought Jackley might have been mistaken and that he'd left the stuff in the other tower." "And Applegate let you search that as well?" Fenton Hardy's eyes twinkled. "Not until we told him our reasons. We told him about Jackley, and then he became enthusiastic and even helped us in the search. But we didn't find anything." "Strange," muttered the detective. "I know Jackley wasn't lying. He had nothing to gain by deceiving me. Absolutely nothing. He was in real earnest if ever a man was. 'I hid it in the old tower.' Those were his words. He would have told me more if he'd been able, and what could he mean but the old tower of Tower Mansion? Why should he be so careful to say the old tower? Every knows the mansion has two towers, the old and the new." "Of course," said Joe, "it may be that we didn't search thoroughly enough. The stuff may be hidden in the flooring or behind the walls." "That's the only solution I can think of," replied Fenton Hardy. "I'm not satisfied yet that the loot isn't there. I'm going to get in touch with Applegate and ask permission for a real thorough search of both towers. It's to his interest as well as mine." "Well, Applegate thinks possibly Jackley hid the stuff all right, but Robinson found it and sold it," said Frank. "He hinted that he was of the opinion that Robinson was in league with the thief." "It does look rather bad," Mr. Hardy admitted. "One couldn't blame Applegate very much for thinking Robinson found the stuff after it was hidden and made away with it." "Robinson wouldn't do that," cried Joe. "He's too honest." "I don't think he would do it either," said his dad. "But sometimes, if a man is in need of money and temptation is placed in his way, he gives in. I'd hate to believe that of Robinson, but if that stuff isn't found in the tower, I'll have to admit that it looks very much as if he were mixed up in it." The interview with their father left the Hardy boys feeling far from cheerful, for they saw that Mr. Robinson was now more deeply involved in the affair than before. On the face of it, circumstances seemed to be against the caretaker. "Just the same," said Frank as the boys left the house and went down the street, "I don't believe Jackley ever hid the stuff in the tower. If he had ever so much as opened the tower door, he would have left some marks in the dust and we would have seen them. So I don't believe Robinson came along later and got the loot." "As we saw, the dust in the tower hadn't been disturbed in weeks. Well, there was even dust on the doorknob when Mr. Applegate let us in." "Well, then why should Jackley say he hid the stuff there?" exclaimed Frank, puzzled. "Don't ask me. I'm just as much in the dark as you are." When the boys reached the business section of the city, they found that already Jackley's confession had become common property. People were discussing the deathbed confession on the street corners, and newsboys were busy selling copies of papers in which the story of the criminal's last statement was featured on the front page under black headlines. Policeman Conrad was ambling along Main Street in the morning sunshine, swinging his club with the air of a man without a care in the world. When he saw the boys, he frowned, for there was no love lost between the Hardys and the Bayport Police Department. Well, he grunted, I hear you got the stuff back. I wish we had, said Frank. What? Said the constable, brightening up at once. You didn't get it? I thought it said in the paper this morning this fellow Jackie told where he'd hidden it. He did. And you can't find it? Oh, Conriley indulged in a hearty laugh. What a fine detective your father is. Didn't Jackie say the stuff was hidden in the old tower? Well, what more does he want? Our father didn't search for the stuff, retorted Frank. We did, and it wasn't there. Jackie must have made a mistake. It wasn't there, exclaimed Riley in high delight. That's a good one. That's the best I've heard in years. He chuckled exceedingly and slapped his knee. Jackie put a good one over on your father that time. Oh, the stuff wasn't there. Riley wiped the tears from his eyes and went on his way, trying to laugh and at the same time retain his dignity as an officer of the law. The joke, he decided, was too good to keep, so as he proceeded back toward the police station, there to edify Chief Colleague and Detective Smuff with the tale, he buttonholed various passers-by and poured the story into their willing ears. It was not long before the yarn had spread throughout the city with that swiftness peculiar to stories spread by word of mouth, and in the telling the story was exaggerated, the net effect being that Fenton Hardy was made to look ridiculous by believing a false confession. Highly colored accounts of the boys' search of the old tower quickly spread, and throughout the day they were subjected to many caustic and sarcastic inquiries on the part of friends and acquaintances alike. They took all these remarks in good part, although they did not enjoy their sudden prominence. Never mind, said Frank, we'll show them yet. I hope they find that stuff when they search the towers again, asked Joe. Then the people will have to eat crow. It'll be our turn to laugh. Yes, agreed Frank, but just now our laughter seems to be in a far distant future. When they returned home, they found that Fenton Hardy had been busy in the meantime and had convinced Herb Applegate that a thorough search of the towers would be advisable. True, he had not accomplished this without a great deal of opposition on the part of Adelia, and without misgivings on the part of Herb Applegate himself, who had come by that time to the conclusion that Robinson had indeed been mixed up in the affair all along. In this conviction he was sustained by Chief Colleague, who had paid a call at the Applegate home as soon as he'd learned of the vain search of the towers. The chief says Robinson is behind it, and I'm beginning to think he's right, said Applegate. But how about the confession, Mr. Hardy asked. The chief says it's all a blind. Jackie did it to protect Robinson, and they were both working together. I know it looks bad for Robinson, said the detective, but I don't think it would hurt to give the towers another thorough search. I was the one who heard Jackie made the confession, and I don't believe he was lying. I believe he was trying to tell me all he knew. Maybe. I think he was too smart for you, Mr. Hardy, and everybody else thinks so too. It was all a hoax. I'll believe that after I've searched the towers inside and out. Well, go ahead. Go as far as you like, but I don't think you'll find the treasure. With that, Mr. Hardy was content. He made preparations for a search of the towers, although Adelia Applegate flatly declared that the detective was making a laughingstock of her and her brother, and that if the nonsense continued, she would leave Tower Mansion forever and carry out her oft-expressed intention of going to one of the South Sea Islands as a missionary. In spite of the protestations of the worthy lady, however, the search was carried out. The old tower was visited first, and for the greater part of the following morning the place was searched from top to bottom. Even the floors were torn up in places in the quest of some secret hiding place in which Jackie might have left the loot. But although Fenton Hardy, accompanied by the boys and Herb Applegate, who soon became infected with the dogged enthusiasm of the others and lent every assistance in his power, hunted through the old tower in every conceivable place, the missing jewels and bonds were not recovered. Nothing left but to search the new tower, Mr. Hardy commented briefly when the search was over, and throughout the whole afternoon the new tower was the scene of a search that was as thorough as it was fruitless. Walls and partitions were tapped, floors were sounded, furniture was minutely examined, not an inch of space escaped the minute scrutiny of the detective and his helpers. But as the search wore on and the loot still evaded discovery, The chagrin of Fenton Hardy deepened, and Herd Applegate finally lost his temper. "A hoax," he declared. "A hoax from start to finish." "Oh, the man was in earnest," the detective insisted. "Well, then where's the stuff?" "Someone else may have found it. That's the only explanation I can think of." "Exactly. And who else could have taken it but Robinson?" To this, Mr. Hardy was silent. In spite of his knowledge of and liking for the man, he was beginning to suspect that the caretaker may have had a hand in the affair after all. "Either that or Jackley simply told that yarn to shield Robinson," declared Applegate. "I'm not going to give up this search yet," said Mr. Hardy patiently. "Perhaps the loot was hidden somewhere about the grounds." So the grounds of Tower Mansion, particularly in the vicinity of the two towers, were thoroughly searched. The shrubbery was inspected, but to no avail. The search continued until sundown, and by that time Adelia Applegate was pale with wrath, for the place, as she expressed it, had been turned upside down. Herd Applegate was outspoken in his rage and disappointment, while Fenton Hardy was deeply chagrined. As for the boys, although they had expected that the additional search would be without success, they shared their father's bewilderment. "I can't understand it," admitted the detective. "I could have sworn that Jackley was in earnest when he made that confession. He knew he was near death, and he had nothing to gain by concealment. I can't understand it at all." And there the mystery remained, deeper than it had ever been. Chapter 20. The Flash in the Tower. For 2 days after the unsuccessful search of Tower Mansion, there were no further developments in the affair of the robbery. But on the third day, Chief Colleague took a hand. The first intimation the Hardy boys had of it was when they met Callie Shaw and Iola Morton on their way to school. Iola, a plump, dark girl, was a sister of Chet Morton, and had achieved the honor of being about the only girl Joe Hardy had ever conceded to be anything but an unmitigated nuisance. Joe, who was shy in the presence of girls, professed a lofty scorn for all members of the other sex, particularly those of high school age, but had once grudgingly admitted that Iola Morton was all right for a girl. This, from him, was high praise. "Have you heard what's happened?" asked Callie as they met the boys near the school entrance. "A school called off for today?" asked Joe eagerly. No, nothing like that. It's about the Robinsons." "Well, what's happened now?" "Mr. Robinson has been arrested again." The Hardy boys stared at her as though thunderstruck. "What for?" demanded Frank in astonishment. "Over that robbery at Tower Mansion. He has been working in the city lately, and Chief Colleague sent Detective Smuff for him last night. Iola and I were over to see the Robinson girls last night, and they told us about it. Smuff should be back by now." "Well, can you beat that?" exclaimed Frank. "I wonder what's the big idea of arresting him again." "Well, it seems the chief has an idea that Mr. Robinson was in league with this man Jackley, the man your father got the confession from. He told Mrs. Robinson last night that he was sure Mr. Robinson had the stuff hidden somewhere, and he was going to find out. He was perfectly mean and nasty about it, and Mrs. Robinson doesn't know what to do." The Hardy boys looked at one another. The affair had suddenly assumed more serious proportions. "If Mr. Robinson is brought back," said Iola, "he'll lose his job, and he had a hard time getting it anyway." "Well, the worst of it is," said Frank slowly, "that the case looks pretty bad against Mr. Robinson." "Oh, you don't think they'll send him to the penitentiary?" "Oh, it looks bad. The thief said he hid the stuff in the old tower. When we looked for it, the stuff wasn't there. About the only person that could have found it and taken it away was Mr. Robinson himself." "He wouldn't do it," declared Iola indignantly. "We're sure he wouldn't, but a jury mightn't be so easy to convince." It was time to go into school at that moment, and they went to their classrooms, Frank and Joe deeply worried by what they just heard. At recess that morning, they met Jerry, Phil, Tony, and Chet Morton and told them the news. All the boys were highly concerned over their sudden turn in events. "This'll be tough on Perry," said Phil. "It'll be tough on the whole family," Chet declared. "They've had enough trouble over this dirty affair as it is." The boys discussed the situation from all angles and racked their brains for some way whereby they could help the Robinsons. but they were reluctantly forced to admit that only by actual discovery of the hidden loot could Mr. Robinson be cleared of suspicion in connection with the robbery. Even if he were tried and acquitted, it would be a stain on his reputation for the rest of his life, as long as the treasure isn't recovered, Frank summed up. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, Joe said. We've done all we could, and it hasn't been enough. And Dad has done the same, said Frank. I'm sorry on his account. He was so sure he had cleared the whole thing up when he got the confession from Jackley. But there was something lacking. Well, we all helped too, remarked Jerry. We kept calling and Smuff from catching that train. Jackley wouldn't have talked at all if they hadn't seen him. So, reluctantly enough, the boys were forced to admit that they were facing a stone wall. This also was the conclusion of Fenton Hardy when they talked to him at lunch that day. There's nothing to be done, said the detective. Robinson has been arrested, and while he might be cleared by a skillful lawyer, he hasn't any money to spend on his defense. And whether he's cleared or not, his reputation is ruined. Unless the loot is found, put in Joe. Yes, unless the loot is found. That is his only hope. But I don't think there's much chance of that. And there the mystery of Tower Mansion rested for the time being. The arrest of Mr. Robinson furnished a sensation for a day or so, and then the case receded into the background, the newspapers finding other things to become excited about. But for the Robinsons it was, naturally enough, a matter of supreme moment. Perry Robinson paid a call at the Hardy home, pleading with the great detective to continue his efforts to clear the accused man. Mr. Hardy was sympathetic, but, as he said, he was facing a stone wall. I've done all I can, my boy, he explained to the grief-stricken lad. If there was anything more I could do, I would do it. But there are no more clues. If Red Jackley's confession couldn't clear up the affair, then nothing else could. I'm afraid... He left the sentence unfinished. Do you mean my father will go to jail? I wouldn't say that, but you must be prepared to face the worst. He didn't do it, said Perry doggedly. I know you have confidence in him, but the law looks only at the facts. Many an innocent man has been convicted on less evidence. Oh, it will kill my mother. Mr. Hardy was silent. I don't know what to do, said Perry. I'd do anything to save him, but there's nothing any of us can do now unless by some lucky chance the loot is recovered. That would clear everything up, of course, but in the meantime, we just have to wait and hope. And you can't do anything more, Mr. Hardy? A detective is not a miracle man, my boy, said Fenton Hardy kindly. He's only a man who's trained in tracing criminals. He has to go by the facts at his disposal. I have exhausted every line of action in this case. Everything that could be done has been done. Perry Robinson got up, twisting his cap nervously in his hands. We all thank you very much, too, Mr. Hardy, he said huskily. Don't think I've been ungrateful by coming here and asking you to do more. I guess I didn't realize just how hopeless it is. Well, it isn't hopeless exactly. Don't think that. There's always hope, you know, but I'll be prepared for the worst. I'll have to be. With that, the boy left. Frank and Joe met him in the hallway and awkwardly tried to express their sympathy. Perry was grateful. I know both of you have done a lot for us in this mess, he said. If it hadn't been for you, you wouldn't even have Jackley's story to go on. We're only sorry it didn't work out as we hoped, Perry, Frank said. We thought that would clear the whole thing up. Instead, it seems to have involved your father deeper than before. It wasn't your fault, said Perry. I know, but perhaps something will turn up yet. Joe and I aren't going to lie down on the job now. There isn't much we can do, but we'll have our eyes open for more clues, if there are any. Perry Robinson shrugged his shoulders dispiritedly. I guess there isn't much use now, he said, but I appreciate it of you. When he went away, the Hardy boys watched him going down the front walk. His carefree stride was gone, and instead he walked mechanically, as though in a daze. What a fine pair of detectives we are, exclaimed Frank in sudden disgust. If we'd been any good at all, we'd have gotten those clues soon enough for Dad to have caught Jackley in time. No use worrying about that now, replied his brother. It's just the way things happened. Well, there's one thing left. We must find that loot. Haven't we tried? Yes, but we can try some more. We've just got to, clear Mr. Robinson. And there's only the one way. We must find the loot. It was a dull, gloomy day, indicative of rain, and this did not add to the boys' spirits. To ease their feelings, the brothers took a walk, and quite unconsciously their steps took them in the vicinity of Tower Mansion. "Let's have a squint at the old place from the outside," suggested Joe. "Don't let Adelia see you. She'll come after you with a broomstick," chuckled Frank. "Gee, but she's a tartar." They walked into the grounds. It was growing darker now, and they easily made their way among the trees and bushes to the vicinity of the rambling mansion. They gazed up at the old tower questioningly. "Some puzzle," was Frank's comment. "Will the case of the tower treasure ever be solved?" "Search me," was his brother's slangy answer. "Perhaps— Oh, Frank, look," he added suddenly. He was gazing up at the upper windows of the old stone tower. He had seen a strange flash of light. Now this flash was followed by another. "That's queer," muttered Frank. "What can it mean?" The light disappeared. Then of a sudden it flashed out and downward in the direction of the lads. "Must be looking for us," gasped Joe, and started to get behind a bush. "It's Adelia," said Frank, "and she has a big flashlight." "What do you know about that?" "She's looking for the treasure herself," cried Joe. "Huh. And after all she said about our looking being nothing but foolishness." They saw the woman gaze out the window for a few seconds, and in one hand she held the flashlight. For a moment she turned the light into her own face, and the boys saw there a look of utter disgust. "I didn't find it, I'll bet a cookie," chuckled Joe. "Come on, let's get away before she spots us," returned his brother, and they were soon on their way. As they walked home, Joe and Frank talked the matter over. They smiled when they thought of the eccentric woman up in that dusty old tower, but their minds soon went back to Slim and the troubles of the Robinson family. "We've got to find that loot," declared Frank emphatically. "No matter where that tower treasure is, we've got to find it." "Well, got to, but can we?" "Oh, well, we simply have to, I tell you." End of episode. Well, the boys are certainly determined, but there are no more clues to help them. So what's next? If you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoyed this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack at ravensview.substack.com. And remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.